So all I'm doing here is I'm whisking with my fork. I just pour it right in the center. These are ready to come out. See how easy they come out? Let's give it a go. Oh man. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and today I'm going to make sourdough waffles, but I'm going to use a recipe that can be made the same day. Most recipes, if you look them up online, and I've done recipes like this on my YouTube channel before, you mix everything up the night before, then you make the sourdough waffles the next morning. This recipe I've figured out myself. You can just mix it all up in the morning and make them. So it's a good way to use up your sourdough. If you got sourdough, you should use it and replace. If you got to feed it once a week, so you might as well use it once a week. And once a week, we usually have waffles or pancakes or tea biscuits or something like that, so I get to use it. But most sourdough waffle recipes are overnight sort of thing. With this one here, you can just put it all together and go. So let's get started. All right, so I got my waffle maker turned on and it's warming up. Hopefully by the time we get this all mixed, this will be at the right temperature. This one here has like settings from 1 to 6. I usually put it one back from the highest setting, so I have it on 5, whatever 5 means. It doesn't have a temperature associated with it. So let's start putting this all together. You want to mix the dry first and then the wet. Start with the dry and then go to the wet. So for dry, this calls for 1 1/4 cup of flour. Just using, regular all-purpose flour. 1 1/4 cup, measured approximately. And then it calls for 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I've tried this with a teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon. I find 1/2 teaspoon is about the right amount. It calls for 1 teaspoon of baking powder. This is a recipe I've played with and tweaked a lot over the years, but this works. Teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. This is any sort of quick thing with sourdough. You get out baking soda. The sourdough's sour. The baking soda reacts with that. The acidity of that makes it rise and, reduces the sourness to a certain extent. And I find 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda is the right amount for this recipe here. And 2 tablespoons of sugar. Just going to steal this from the sugar jar. 2 tablespoons of sugar. All right. Okay, that's all our dry. You can add cinnamon to that or whatever, whatever fancy thing you want to add to it, but we just kind of like them plain, I guess. I guess I could try cinnamon. I'm sure it would be, I just don't know, right? You don't want to make something that, I basically make this for my kids because they love waffles and syrup and butter and all that stuff. Not that I don't like it too, but of course, as an adult, you pay a bigger price for eating these things. And I'm just using a fork to blend that all together. Okay, and to sort of, in a sense, take out any lumps or whatever that might be in the flour. All right, that's mixed enough in my opinion. Now all I do, this is just a quick, I'm doing this as fast as I can to show you how practical this is for like a morning type affair. So now I've got that together. We're going to put our wet in here. So the wet is 2 eggs. All right, 1, 2, all right. Get rid of those guys. And it's the same amount of milk as you have flour. I'm using this rice milk because I can't have dairy, but it's better with, real milk, flavor-wise, homogenized milk or whatever. All right, so there's 1 cup. Here's a 1/4 cup. Yes, I know this isn't a liquid measure. Doesn't matter. If you want to be fussy like that, go right ahead. I've even made this with water. It works if you don't have any of these fake, vegan milks or whatever they're called. Okay, so there's our milk. And you need a 1/3 cup of oil. There's a 1/3 cup. 1/3 cup of oil. I just have just vegetable oil here. You use whatever you got. Okay. That'll keep it from sticking. Remember, this is not health food. These are waffles, right? It's practically a dessert you eat for breakfast. and the starter. Okay, so I got the starter here. This has not been used for the better part of a week. With starter, I should show you what this looks like. It usually separates over the course of the week, so basically if your starter looks like this, you know, it gets this sort of gross liquid clear stuff on the top and then the sort of solidified stuff on the bottom. If you have sourdough starter. I've heard lots of people talk, so you're just going to mix that up so it's all the liquid stuff is mixed in with the solid stuff, so it all basically looks homogenized. Okay, so that's what I'm doing right now. If you don't know anything about starter, there's lots of good videos. Maybe I'll put a link to one at the end of this on how to get it started. And the easiest way is just to get some from a friend. But there's lots of different superstitions about what kind of flour you need to keep it going. When I started this, I started it using rye flour, and I was of the belief, I was convinced that I could only keep the starter going with rye. And then one time I ran out of rye and I just used all-purpose flour, and it's been going fine ever since. So you don't need any, I mean, there's arguments for not using all-purpose flour to get one started. Because you know, the other kinds of flour might have more of the, you know, the organisms that actually allow the sourdough to work in them. But once you got it started, you can feed it with, I think, any sort of grain flour, but all-purpose is the cheap one, right? Okay, so we got that all nice and mixed up. It's all one color now. And I'm just going to put half a cup. I find for any sourdough recipe, half a cup of sourdough, half a teaspoon of baking soda is the right ratio. So when I make tea biscuits, I have half a cup of sourdough, half a teaspoon of baking soda. When I make sourdough pancakes, half a cup of sourdough, half a teaspoon of baking soda, right? So it keeps it simple, always half a cup. You know, when I'm done filming here, I'll put half a cup of flour, half a cup of water in here, mix it all up, change containers, let it sit on the counter for about an hour or two, and stick it back in the fridge for the rest of the week or until next time I want to use it. All right, so we'll just put that over there for now. All right, so now we got all our wet in here. So it's still kind of like compartmentalized. I got dry on the left and the wet on the right. All I'm going to do here, maybe I'll just bring the camera in to show you. All right, so I'm just going to stab the eggs, and see how I've tilted this? So I got all my wet over here. All right, so I'm just whisking them. You can use a whisk for this, but I just got a fork out today, but use whatever you want. I find a whisk is better with a bigger bowl. I like this bowl because I can throw it in the dishwasher. I mean, you should wash a bowl like this, should be washed by hand, but if you're, you know, you got a lot of dishes, you want to get them done quick, you throw everything in the dishwasher, right? Okay, our waffle maker is ready. Okay, so I'm just going to continue. So all I'm doing here is I'm whisking with my fork the liquid, and I'm just gradually pulling the dry in to the whipped up wet ingredients. And again, if you want to be pure, you can use a whisk for this. But this recipe is going to work regardless of what you do. Okay, you could use, as long as you got something with tines. I'd probably do this with chopsticks if I really wanted to prove a point, right? We're just about mixed in, so it's just like making a cake. I mean, it's kind of what you're doing, right? It's a quick bread, right? Not a yeast bread, it's a quick bread. Chemical leavening, chemical reaction. Sourdough is acidic. The baking soda is alkaline. They combine, they make bubbles, and that gives you your lift, right? We always think of sourdough as this sort of very natural thing, and it is, but we can still do chemistry with sourdough because it's acidic. All right, so you just do this for a couple seconds. All right. I'd say we got her there. We're mixed. All right, now it's time to put everything. Sometimes it's good to let just sit for a minute, but you really don't have to let it sit for long. Let it sit for about a minute, and then put it in the waffle maker. So let's get at that. All right, here we got our waffle maker heated up. This is a Cuisinart waffle maker. Really doesn't matter what brand you use. I like the ones that make waffles that are of a size that fit nicely in toaster. I know Belgian waffles are really popular, but they don't fit in a toaster nicely. You got to cut them in these weird sort of awkward triangle pieces. So yeah, I like ones that make the square waffles that they're the size of a piece of bread that'll fit nicely in a toaster, because that way you can make more than you need on a given day, stick them in the fridge or freeze them and just have them at a later date, right? So they're a good weekday thing and a weekend thing, right? You can make them on the weekend, have some leftovers and just throw them in the toaster. Sometimes they even taste better after they've gone through the toaster a second time anyway. And to toast them, you just put them in the toaster on the lowest setting your toaster have, because they've already been cooked. This is Teflon, but I find the first waffle isn't, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of butter or some sort of, something, Pam or whatever you got, just for the first one. This, of course, is not real butter I'm using here, but it'll do. My waffle maker holds about 1 cup of waffle mix. I got a half cup measure here, so I just pour it right in the center. So it's basically 2 half cups. You put more than that, it'll start spilling out on the sides and making a heck of a mess. So I'm not going to muck with this. I just close her down and let gravity and time solve the equation. About 4 minutes is the amount of time this takes. I usually give it a check. So I find the first waffles you make aren't always... The timing of the first waffles and the timing of the last waffles is almost never equivalent. They tend to cook a little bit faster, the last ones that come through. So you might start with a 4-minute timing for the first batch. Second batch might be like slightly less than 4 minutes. The next batch might be like almost closer to 3 minutes, right? So I don't know why that just seems to work that way. The main thing is too, in between loading and unloading the waffle maker, the less amount of time you have the thing open, the better, right? Because you want it to be nice and hot, right? So that when these hit the surface, they really start to, apply that heat and get the lift and get them nice and light and fluffy, so that they're, proper waffles. All right, I've been keeping loose track of time, and I think it's about 4 minutes. I'm just going to check. Yeah, these look just fine and nice and golden brown. They're perfect. Right? Sometimes it might be stuck a little bit. I find an actual chopstick is a great tool for lifting them out, especially if it's got a sort of pointier end. Anyway, I've got this thing open, so let's get these in. Notice I'm not greasing it this time. I find just once, the first time, even with Teflon, like this one, it's a non-stick waffle maker, but I find the first time it helps to grease it with something. All right, there's batch number 2. So we'll let that go. When you put these in the toaster, I find just having them on the lowest setting, like, our setting has a setting like 1 through 5. 1's fine. Even the morning of, so I mean, this is the afternoon right now, but let's say it was breakfast time and we were having these waffles. I find I like to take the ones that are going on my plate and just throw them in the toaster really quickly, just to get a little extra warming them up. I mean, you can turn the oven on and keep everything nice and warm in the oven and use all that electricity up, but you can get the same effect by just throwing them in the toaster on the lowest setting for like 30 seconds, because that's all you really need, right? You just want to warm and toast them up. So, we're going to make a bunch of these, and the first ones, by the time we sit down to eat, are going to cool down. Your butter's not going to melt to them, all that stuff. Because they're the size, right? The right size to go in a toaster, right? They're just begging to be toasted a little bit more. But also, if you're having them the next day or the day after that, or what have you, they'll go in the toaster, no problem. So that's all you got to do. All right, it's been about 3 or 4 minutes. These are ready to come out. See how easy they come out, right? They're done, nicely browned, fully risen. Okay, another couple here. All right, so this is not hard to do. If you get up a little bit, I mean, it takes more time than just making toast and scrambled eggs. I can't argue against that. So it's usually more of a Saturday morning sort of thing, right? But if you make a little extra, or you just make these, whenever, you can just stick them in the fridge and have them the next day. But yeah, we haven't got enough for another full 4, but we'll throw that in next time. We're almost done here. So I'd say to whip up waffles from scratch, sourdough, I don't know how long this video is taking, but I would say it's like 20 minutes start to finish. if you're focused and manage your time well. And during that 20 minutes, because you've got these little 3-minute stalls, you can clean the kitchen, set the table, wipe down the counters, yell at the kids to get out of bed. You can get all that stuff done, right? Make tea, make coffee, right? All that can happen because you've got these little 3-minute periods where you can do other things in the kitchen. I mean, a lot of people talk to me about how do you do this, how do you do that? Oh man, where do you find the time? Blah, 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 blah. You know, a lot of these old-fashioned, old-world things, they're more of a question of just organizing your time well. You know, I'm lucky because I get up very early in the morning, so I've got a lot of time anyway. But yeah, we have breakfast at 6:15 in the morning, and if I start making, I can make these from scratch. I can start at 5:45 and have them done by 6:15. And for that matter, I can make bacon and eggs in that same amount of time, or soft-boiled eggs and toast, or whatever, right? And the only reason I'm talking about this is because a lot of people are looking at this saying, oh my goodness, that's too much. How could you possibly do that on a weekday morning? It's totally doable on a weekday morning as long as you set aside half an hour to make breakfast. If you don't have that, then just make them the night before or make extra on the weekend and throw them in the toaster, and instead of spending a small fortune on Pop-Tarts or some garbage like that, you've got nice homemade sourdough waffles. All right, it's been about 3 minutes, and whoa, look at the difference. So this is what I was telling you about. Look, I gave this the same amount of time as the other ones, but you can tell it's darker in color, right? So yeah, sometimes the later ones cook faster, probably because the grill temperature gradually increases. So I don't know how much we've got here, but it's less than a cup, that's for sure. So I'm just going to throw this in. Right, this recipe makes about, you know, a dozen. We've got a dozen here made, and we got this sort of like extra waffle here, right? While that's cooking, I thought maybe I could try one of these bad boys. So I might as well have one of these ones that are sort of, you can see the difference in color, even though they all get the same amount of time, right? This is the last batch, first batch. This actually got more time than this. And it's not like I changed the heat setting on the waffle iron. And every waffle iron I've ever had has had that function, where the later ones seem to be more cooked than the earlier ones. My kids like them golden like this, right? I don't really care. So I'm going to have one of these sort of super cooked ones. Also, they just came off, so why not, right? So I'm going to slather on some of this fake butter margarine stuff and put on some of this very unhealthy table syrup. Anyway, let's go. So this is not health food. This is not something I eat every day, right? This is like a Saturday morning, Sunday morning thing. And sometimes if we've got some kicking around, we'll have them on the weekdays. Well, let's give her a go. Oh, man. If only that was real butter, and this was maple syrup. I mean, that's the creme de la creme, right? But just with this cheap table syrup and this vegan butter stuff, it's still really, really good. So this technique of cooking them without the overnight rise, I just figured this out by trying different proportions. I knew that it would need a little bit of baking powder for the extra lift, but it totally works. And I've not done a direct taste test between the overnight ones and these. What I know is that the morning I made these, my kids ate them all and did not complain, and I found them to be good. I can't remember what the overnight ones taste like anymore because I haven't made them since, because this is just so much more quick and convenient, right? So, I mean, one of these days, maybe I'll do all of that. But basically, as soon as I've figured out how to make sourdough waffles without having to mix them up overnight and wait for all of that, I've made them this way ever since. They taste really good. This recipe really works. So if you have sourdough and you like waffles, and you have them from time to time, maybe give this a try some morning. I think you'll like it. These ready yet? Yes, perfectly done. I timed these ones right. Okay, so I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden, have fun in your kitchen too. Thanks for watching.